Hi, good afternoon. My name is Donna Martin, and this video is for my Principal Practicum Observation number 1. My name again is Donna Martin. This is my 7th year in education. I initially started as a paraprofessional. This is my 4th year in special education. I am currently grade chair for the special education department. My site supervisor is Mr. Chavaria. He is our assistant principal here at my campus. He is currently in his doctorate program and he's been an assistant principal for 3 years. I am now going to go ahead and turn it over to my other participants. Ms. Freitag.
Hi, my name is Miranda Freitag. This is my 15th year of teaching. I currently teach ASD pre-K through 2nd, but I have also taught 1st, 3rd, and 4th. I also have my master's in reading, and I have previously been department head.
Ms. Ice.
My name is Courtney Ice. This is my 17th year in education. I have taught all grades, K through 9. I've spent the most in 4th grade math and science, which is where I am now. I am also 4th grade team lead, and I'm getting my master's in educational leadership, focusing on administration, and I'm currently also in my principal practicum.
Our meeting norms for today are: we will maintain a respectful and solutions-focused tone, honoring each participant's voice and expertise. We will also remain fully engaged by minimizing distractions, actively listening, and contributing to the discussion. We will focus on strengths and opportunities for growth, keeping the conversation constructive and student-centered. At my campus, Savannah Lakes Elementary, we are a Title I campus that has a total of 823 students currently enrolled. We service students from pre-K to 5th grade. We have several specialized special programs. The largest ethnic groups that we service are African Americans along with Hispanics. 58% of our campus is economically disadvantaged students, and the others are 40% are at-risk students. The objective for this video is that by the end of this data review session, participants will be able to analyze disaggregated academic performance data, benchmarks, state assessments, classroom grades for economically disadvantaged and at-risk students, identify performance trends and achievement gaps, and prioritize at least one targeted area for instructional improvement that aligns with campus goals and support equitable student achievement. Some key terms that I would like for you ladies to keep in mind while we are going through this data review are at risk, which at-risk students is one who identifies as being at risk of dropping out of school or failing to meet grade level academic standards. This can either mean that the student has failed the STAR test or they've been retained one or more times in grades pre-K through 3rd grade. Other factors are the students being homeless, foster care, or having other special circumstances. An economically disadvantaged student is identified as coming from a low-income based household. So students who typically qualify for free or reduced price lunches under the National School Program. Another thing about Savannah Lakes Elementary, we are a proud campus that strives to meet our vision, which is each student every day, thriving in a diverse world. In the 2025 TEA accountability ratings, our campus earned an overall B. Woohoo for our campus!
Yay.
and a B in also closing the gaps. These results have set a new standard at SLE, and we are determined to surpass it for this current school year by reaching each student every day. We will now go over our TAPER report for Savannah Lakes Elementary 23-24 school year, the most recent report on the TEA's website. All right, guys, let's take a look at our TAPER report. Looking at the TAPER report, what are some things that you guys noticed? Specifically, let's take a look at 4th grade math.
Well, I always look at, because I teach special education students, I always like to look at the SPED, looking at the SPED aspect of it.
Yes.
And kind of see, you know, how our kids did. And so I noticed that there was a steep decline in performance for the math. And so that's kind of concerning. But then, you know, wanting to look at last year's data
Right.
to see what happened last year. And so hopefully we'll be able to see that.
So I
And it's
see
on.
that for specifically special education students, that in 2023, our students scored 50% in approaches. As to 2024, the students did a very deep decline to 26%. Do you ladies see that?
Yeah. So looking at the SPED.
Yeah.
There's a 26% right there.
Yes.
So it's interesting to think about where we were in that time frame, you know, because it was 2 years ago.
Right.
And so that, you know, thinking who were the teachers, who were the kids, and what could have happened or what could have been the cause.
Right. Now I see for the African American students for 4th grade, looking at that paper report, that there was a drop in pretty much every level. Approaches dropped 15%, meets dropped by 9%, and masters dropped as well by 7%. That is like very concerning, right?
Yeah.
As compared to the previous year. So what factors do you think cause that significant drop in meets and masters for the African American students? Especially when you're looking at grades 4 and 5, because the same thing happened for 5th grade African American students as well. There was a decline from 23 to 24 across all levels. So in 23, African American students in 5th grade did 61% in approaches. Compared to 24, it was 55% at approaches, 33% at meets, versus 2024 was 25% at meets. And masters for 2024, we had no African American students even master math that year.
It's concerning.
That is. What do you think contributed to that decline? That's a pretty steep decline in the African American student population in grades 4 and 5. And you
Yeah.
see, we're back in 3rd grade, those students.
So they would have been in 3rd grade. That would have been 2023 for those 2024 4th graders.
Yes.
So they're looking at 64%, 42, and 19.
So pretty much back then, we pretty much see students, if we look back in 3rd grade, fewer students reaching like higher proficiency levels. You know what I mean? So that could have been an indicator for the decline
Right.
for 4th and 5th grade.
Right.
Right? So 3rd grade could have been the place to really hone in and provide that intervention and all of the necessary things in order to kind of get them back to grade level.
Right. I also wonder, you know, because 3rd grade is the beginning of like those standardized tests. And so just not having maybe the practice or having the knowledge of the testing. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, we can have the content, but if those questions are confusing, or if, because you know they always try to trip you up. And
Yes.
So if those questions are confusing or they're not quite sure how to answer those
Right.
questions, could that have made a difference?
Right.
I'm also wondering too, because once students get to 4th grade, the focus becomes on standard algorithm, like in math, and we get, like, it's more abstract instruction and less like with manipulatives and less concrete. And so I'm wondering, like, if like those kinesthetic learners or those like hands-on strategies, the differentiated strategies that they learned for addition, subtraction, even multiplication in 2nd and 3rd grade, those strategies aren't honed in on as much once we get to 4th.
Right.
That's an interesting thought.
That is.
I didn't even think about that.
That it's more concrete back in like 3rd grade.
Right.
And then as they go into 4th and 5th grade, it's going to be abstract.
And I would assume, you know, teaching 4th grade, that, you know, I know that I use manipulatives a little bit, but then 5th grade, you're trying to get them ready for junior high, and so that ability of the manipulatives, and not everybody gets a calculator.
Right,
It's
right.
only some students that
Right.
get qualified for that
Right.
accommodation. So, you know, you're looking at,
So do you think that 3rd grade math teachers should be looking at the alignment and pretty much as the year progresses, starting to remove some of those very concrete materials to kind of get the students used to thinking more abstract? You know what I mean? To better prepare them.
I think it would be helpful to make sure that students can at least represent. Maybe not so much concrete, but yeah, definitely represent. As far as the standard algorithm though, that's not a teak until 4th grade.
Right.
So
Right.
there's only like so many strategies that can be taught. But I think a bigger issue is there's such a push on 4th grade teachers to push out those abstract algorithms
Right.
that I'm wondering if we necessarily are stepping back and meeting the students where they're at as often as we should be. You know what I'm saying? Because like at the beginning of the year, we really bring out those concrete and those representational models. But then as we get closer to the spring, they go away. And so I'm wondering if there's like a better bridge.
what about,
So I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
you're fine.
How are we differentiating math specifically for those SPED students, those EBELs, our economically disadvantaged students? You know, what does that differentiation look like for them?
Well, there's lots of vocabulary, lots of like visuals. Yeah, lots of visual vocabulary. There are, I'm just thinking like lots of access to, like in my room, there's lots of access to manipulatives if they need them.
Okay.
And so they know like to kind of meet where they're at. Like if I need it, I can go grab it.
Right.
I wonder if there needs to be a discussion with all students, not just ones that use manipulator or that need them, but the idea of we all learn differently, and so therefore we all need things that are different. Because I know sometimes it can be that embarrassment factor. You know, I still would like to use place value blocks,
Right.
but I don't want to because none of my classmates are.
Right.
So just kind of having that more like and the kind of classroom environment, like that open classroom environment
That's
of
so
like,
nice.
yeah, like we can use whatever we need to use to do that. But also, I was thinking about the bridging, you know, from the concrete to the abstract, kind of maybe putting in more of like pictorial, you know, because you can draw pictures anywhere.
Right.
You
Do you
draw it
think
on
that will
paper.
help the students that are economically disadvantaged and the SPED students, right? The ELDE students, like those high focus group students,
Right.
right?
Well,
Because those are the students that essentially, you know, the reality is they need more. If we're looking at the data, those are the students that are not progressing as they should.
Right.
And we have a very large population of African American students, Hispanic students, and just looking back at the data, even for the Hispanic students for fourth grade math, so while approaches increased from 23 to 24, which was good, we went from 71% approaches in 23 to 81% in 2024. And then for meets, we did 46%. Then for 2024, 33% for meets, so that was a decline. 11% masters, 7% masters in 2024. So fewer students are meeting the mastering grade level, which it kind of, that's a signal for the Hispanic students, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe now that the work is getting more rigorous, it's becoming very challenging for them to hit those meets and masters levels as to why meets and masters took that decline.
Do you think it has, I mean, maybe it has something to do, or not something to do, but maybe the home aspect of like how the parents are able to help the students? Maybe they're, you know, trying to work 2 or 3 jobs, or they don't understand the math themselves. Because I know math's changed a lot. Since,
Right.
you know, we were in school, going to school, and then now teaching it, you know,
Right.
it's a lot different. So,
I would say not factoring the home aspect of it. Like, what do you think additionally we can do, right? Like, here on campus to reach those students. What are some things, interventions? I know, for instance, like we have Power Time, right? Specifically geared towards our HB 1414 students that did not pass. So those students, those economically disadvantaged students, those high focus group students, they are now receiving like specific interventions to help aid them in those particular skills that you know they're struggling with. And I think we had this conversation at the beginning of the year that interventions need to be purposeful, right?
Yes.
Like they need to be very intentional. So with you being in fourth grade with ICE, can you speak to what Power Time, our interventions look like?
Well, so for math, what intervention looks like in fourth grade, our Power Time, it really, we're kind of focusing primarily on place value right now. Which is kind of the unit that we just finished, and so we're trying to fill in those gaps that we maybe might have noticed from our formative assessment data.
Okay. And I was just gonna ask that, are teachers consistently using data to kind of help gear those focus groups, those high focus groups, right? To kind of like, so but I know like for instance in PLCs, we're meeting every week in PLCs to review student data, to go over student data. What are some data specifically for math that's being reviewed in PLC?
Yeah, so today we actually set our campus and our teacher goals. So our campus goal for fourth grade math, now it's on the tip of my tongue, it was, I believe 60%.
Okay.
I believe it was 60%.
So pretty much every student needs to, at minimum, be at that baseline of 60%. Okay. Okay. To reach those subpopulations. Those.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we also talked about just like percentage of growth,
Right.
like because for STAR we get points for students that are growing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to power time, it's a lot of like graphic organizers, a lot of hands-on. I know that from my experience, data is used to put them in these groups, but I'm wondering how consistent data monitoring is once the student is in the group to adjust the intervention
As needed. Makes sense. Yes. Yes. That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Because also, sorry not to cut you off,
Uh-huh.
but also we plan our power time lessons like as a math team. However, what may reach my students may not be the same. And
Correct.
so we just have to make sure we're being consistent on meeting the needs of our individual students.
Correct. So now, I can speak towards the intervention for our economically disadvantaged students, such as our special education. We provide, but those specific students that are identified as special education, that have, whether it be a learning disability or something to that nature, we have inclusion support. So we push in for inclusion support to provide them with that intervention to help fill those gaps as well. I know as we get closer to like the spring, we also offer tutoring for students, right? That's another thing that we offer. So those are between HB 14 time, which is our power time. That's an intervention. We have inclusion support. We have tutoring. So we have quite a bit of different things that are going on campus.
On top of the tier 1 differentiated and small
Correct,
groups.
to help support those economically disadvantaged and those at-risk students.
And then not to mention the intensive resource
Yes,
that we have as
Yes.
well. So those students who are critically low
Below
or
grade level.
2 grade levels or below, they're getting provided some intervention as well.
yes, yes. Yeah. All right, so I just want to take a look at, and if we can compare, just for the sake of comparison, third grade, because I know we're talking about our fourth grade subpopulations, African Americans, Hispanics, and we talked about SPED. But those fourth grade students were once third grade students, right? So let's kind of look at how they did in third grade to compare third grade to fourth grade. So in third grade, our economically disadvantaged students, they did 72% approaches in 2023, 73% approaches in 2024, so we went up by a percent. 40% meets in 2023 versus 2024, we took a decline by 10% and 30% meets. Also in 2023, 11% of those EcoDis students hit masters, which is good. And we grew in 2024 by 13%. So overall, we have fewer students that are meeting grade level expectations, though most students pretty much, they held steady.
Yeah.
Those economically disadvantaged students, they pretty much kind of kept the pace and they kept it going. Our SPED students, they jumped significantly, which is so amazing because in 2023, 75% of special education students hit approaches, 38% hit meets, and 13% hit masters, while in 2024 we had 100% hit approaches, 83% hit meets, and 33. Those are like power numbers. So like I'm really we need to really dig deep to find out how did we get from 100% approaches in special education in third grade to we took a 33% decline in fourth grade, right?
What happened between
What
third and fourth
happened?
grade?
What happened? That is a huge decline. Meets went down 54%, masters went down by 37%. Those students really took a dive. I wonder what was the difference.
Was there a teacher turnover? Or is that like,
Yeah,
you know what I
there
mean?
was.
I'm just trying to think about like what might be.
There was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because 2023, yeah, there was a teacher turnover.
I know I changed positions, right? I changed positions because I was one math in sped 23, 24 actually. Yep.
Yeah, so that, yes, that was.
Yes. So, but now, how do we hone in on bringing these students back to where, because these are the students that we need to focus on them, right? Because they're the ones that have the most at risk, right? So, how do we really hone in and kind of,
So, I know like, at the beginning of the year, we do data and we look at data for, our populations and stuff. But I wonder if maybe there needs to be more of an emphasis on like the resource teachers and the SPED teachers coming into those PLC meetings
collaborating
with the gen ed teachers, because the gen ed teachers, I think sometimes both really thinking about these are our students, not your students.
Yes.
I think that there sometimes can be a divide almost of like, well, that's your student. Well, no, actually, it's all of our students.
I agree. I think
But
that
I don't think that we go over data for those students. I think sometimes they get pushed to the side because, oh, they're in SPED, or oh, they're in, their ED or whatever.
Right.
And so I think sometimes that data doesn't get included.
Right.
I don't have any inclusion students. I'm just wondering, is there collaboration between y'all and the classroom teachers on what is happening during inclusion time? Or
Yes.
or what does that look like?
Yes.
Inclusion,
So,
yes.
Yes, inclusion, yes, right? Resources, not so much. But this is what I will say. This year, it's specifically for our economically disadvantaged students, that SPED population, and looking into, like, when I think about the population I have in my room, the African American population, the Hispanic population, one thing we did that was really phenomenal, I think, as a district on a whole, was we now have lessons for resource, right? For our resource teachers. So I think that is going to hopefully make all the difference, where we take those students back up and, on an upward slope to where they once were when they were in third grade. So I think that's gonna really be beneficial. I know that I have been really collaborating a lot with our coach, and I know our math person has been collaborating with the math coach. So I think that's gonna also help us a lot.
What about if the gen ed teachers were encouraged to use some of those modified lessons with
small group.
in small groups? So they're utilizing those lessons,
I like
because there's
that.
more kids than just those 7 kids
Yes.
or whoever's in resource that might need a more a scaffold approach on place value. And so, because y'all were talking about place value.
Right.
So there's that, like, okay, well, I need Johnny and Sierra to come with me with, maybe these 2 other students to be able, and I think that's where, looking at more of the SPED data or the special population data would help to pinpoint what groups can I actually bring in.
Right. I
And
like
bringing
that.
in those SPED, those special education kids that might get resourced. Well, the gen ed teacher can't just think, well, Miss Martin's doing it.
Right.
Like, that's not how it
Right.
works. That's not gonna be.
Right. There needs to be a lot of collaboration.
Because resource has, there's specific other things that they have to teach
Right.
as well.
I'm just thinking too, like the gen ed teachers, we do have small group lessons that are provided, but just to like be real, like I don't like them because it's more of like what we are teaching whole class. And so like for me, it's like it's not
really differentiated.
it's not really
Yeah.
differentiating.
Okay.
And then we don't have
So now,
lessons for power time either.
do you think that a decline in the scores are because, yes, y'all are having small group lessons, but there's no differentiation going on in the gen ed classroom?
Well, I mean, isn't that the
Right.
big definition of insanity, right? Like doing the same thing over and over
Yeah,
again
Well,
and
and
expecting different
also
results.
like at the 4th grade level, we've had a lot of new teachers that I know are new to the curriculum or new to the districts. And so they're following the curriculum to a T, which is great, but that doesn't necessarily allow for kind of like that conceptual knowledge that allows you to differentiate because you've been in the same position for a while.
I'm really curious about if using those resource lessons would be beneficial for small groups.
Yeah, to have it just be a little bit more intentional, right, and geared to those students' level, right? So not only are resource filling gaps, you guys will be filling in gaps as well, trying to get those students up to grade level.
And then, we have some students who are just globally low,
Right.
they don't have necessarily strengths and weaknesses, so they don't
Right.
qualify under the special education umbrella, but they still need that help and that more differentiated help.
Right.
So I think that might be able to reach them as well.
Yes. All right. So now, let's talk about how often are we reviewing student work and assessment data at a TEAC level, right? Like, how often are the district assessments truly aligned with the state assessment, right? Because I know sometimes I'll see, for instance, students that are passing district assessments, the interim, or I'll take the interim back, CBA, for instance, right? And then come the interim or come STAR, they don't perform as well. And I'm like, well, how did you score so well on the CBA or the interim, but then, and the interim, right, it doesn't transfer over.
Well, I think that, I mean, one aspect is like when we take the unit assessments, right, it's fresh on their mind versus like it might not be as fresh on the state assessment. But I think that there definitely could be more consistency with reviewing student work at that level of rigor that we're expecting that matches the TEAC.
Especially for the at-risk students.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Like, cause those are the students, the at-risk and the eco-dis students are the ones that it needs to be like it needs to be so much repetition and reinforcements happening where, with the hopes of eventually like them, it's sticking. You know what I mean? So constant repetition. So I'm thinking as we progress further on in the school year and we get closer to state assessment, what does our interventions look like for those at-risk eco-dis students that need intensive repetition? You know what I mean? In order for them to be successful. Because the reality is, like Ms. Freitag stated, you have some students that are globally low. So they might see something today that is taught to them very rigorously, and then tomorrow they're unable to show work or verbalize to you what they've learned just the day prior. So what is being done? What can we do to really hone in on making sure that repetition is like at the forefront of touching those economically disadvantaged students and really the large population of African American and Hispanic students that we have, because we have, after that, like,
Yeah,
it's just like,
very little.
it's very little of
Mhm.
every other population, right?
Right.
So, us being a Title I campus, those are populations that we serve heavily. So how can we reach those students?
I know that we're currently doing an addition and subtraction unit, and we were just talking about meeting the rigor of the TEAC. And when we look at the TEAC for addition and subtraction, for example, it's often multi-step word problems.
Okay.
But in our unit, only one day is on multi-step word problems out of a 3-week unit. And so that's something that then during intervention
Needs to be really
on time,
reviewed, yes.
it really needs to be reviewed. And I think even sometimes I might like get stuck on the student needs help with basic subtraction,
Right.
but it's not presented in a multi-step word problem situation. So that way, then when they're getting to the state assessment, there hasn't been a lot of that repetition because either it wasn't in the tier 1 curriculum or it wasn't reviewed as heavily as it needed to be in intervention.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's look at now. I printed out for you guys the star results for 4th grade. Turn your page. Let's look at TEAC 4.2B, and this is specifically for our African American, those economically disadvantaged students again. That is, and if we also have the Leap Forward snapshot that we can take a look at, TEAC 4.2B, which really kind of just goes, it just shows you right here that students really did not do well on that particular TEAC.
Can you
So-
read what 4.2 is?
Sure. 4.2B represent the value of the digit in whole numbers through 1 million in decimals to the hundreds using expanded notation and numerals.
Which is what we're doing in power time right now.
So that is a TEAC specifically for those at-risk students, where we look at how they did on the STAR and we hone in on that particular TEAC. That is a TEAC that really needs to be of high focus for those economically disadvantaged and those at-risk students.
So with that TEAC, I'm thinking with expanded notation, right? I think going back in intervention and modeling the expanded notation by, like you were saying earlier, by our drawings and our what was the word you used? Pictorial representations, with representing them like by drawing place value discs
Right.
or blocks, and then counting up the place value disc so they know what to multiply by in the extended notation, if that makes sense,
Right.
versus just focusing on the abstract numerals. I don't know if I'm making sense. Can I draw a picture?
No, sure.
Okay, so like if we are doing extended notation for like, I don't know, 4,321,535, for example, right? There's so much emphasis on 4 times 1 million, right? Like, and all the numbers, right? But if we are like, okay, it's 4 million, so I'm gonna have 4 1 million place value discs, and like drawing out the pictures
For our at-risk students.
Right.
So they have that visual to attach it to.
and then this is something that they could do on their scratch paper for a test or something like that, versus just focusing on this part.
Right.
Well, and then what you're doing is you're kind of triggering that memory of using the actual disc.
Yes.
Okay, I'm using the disc. Okay, now, yes, we can still use our disc, but we're gonna actually draw
Yes.
what we're doing. And then transferring that into this part. But they can still figure out, you know, like, I think
Right.
that that's a good idea.
And
I think
even
that's
like
really good.
using the place
That's
value
really good.
chart, right? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, this is my millions place, this is 100,000.
Well, and that chart is something that that some of those students could have. On.
Right. Because I think when the visuals and the place value chart isn't being used, a lot of times what might happen is like they get muddled in the numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I know on state assessments, like instead of 4,321,000, it might be 123,000. Like they transpose the numbers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they have that visual
I like
representation.
the visual representation.
They're able to look
Yes.
and go, oh no, there's only 2 in that number, but I need 3.
But
or
it
whatever.
needs to be like consistently,
That
you know what I
repetition.
mean? And I think that
repetition.
also goes back to what you were saying about that needs to be part of the classroom environment too, of like, these are our strategies, pick the one that works and makes the most sense for
For
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that might not be the same that works for and that's okay.
So that's a way that we can prioritize, right? Like making sure that those at-risk students, our economically disadvantaged students, that they're being prioritized. Where we're not just providing instruction just for our students that are like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, but we're providing them with, like you said, an array of things and having them, hey, use what is best for you, right? So you have some students, your tier 1 students, who might be just fine with having the place value chart, utilizing the numbers, whereas in students that are special education, now they have those visuals that they can use and they're arriving at the same answer,
And
right?
it's normalized.
And it's normalized, right?
Like, having those, anchor charts, like, here's 3 ways that we can get that
Yes.
same answer. Here's how we do it in each
So that's how I
way.
used to do it when I was teaching math and resource. Like, I would teach things in multiple ways,
Mhm.
right? And tell the students, like, hey, whichever way works for you. And the students will, when it comes time for them to show their work, they're going to do what they're most comfortable with, right? The one that makes the most sense to
Mhm.
them. So I like that idea.
And I think also it would benefit, with the teacher kind of providing that, that culture is for the teacher to say, hey, so-and-so did it this way, but this person did it this way, and
Right.
this person did it this way, and actually showing their work so that other students can see, it, as long as we get the right answer and we get to the actual answer,
Correct.
it doesn't matter how we do it.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
I think sometimes that can get, I think sometimes teachers can kind of unintentionally make, like, you need to do it this way.
Right.
No, it's not the case,
Right.
and so that's kind of a thing that needs to be intentional
Yeah.
with the students that are needing that extra intervention.
So can I ask you guys this question? Do you guys think that there are other professional developments that maybe teachers need to take to strengthen math instruction? Do you guys feel as a whole, especially you, Ms. Ice, right, being on the 4th grade team, being team lead this year, do you feel like you are being supported in not just your tier 1 and tier 2 kids, but those economically disadvantaged students, those at-risk students, and I know that you may not have those students particularly, but as team lead, I'm pretty sure you have members on your team that have those students that are coming to you for, like, hey, I have this student, what can I do, right? Like, how are you guys being supported?
Well, and I think that's a big frustration is I don't know if we are.
Got it.
Right? And I don't know
Sorry.
if, like I said, there's no, like, universal, like, not even a resource for power time. And, like, STEM scopes or, like, the resources that are available are very tier 1 appropriate,
Right.
if that makes sense. So, like, I feel like I'm not sure what resources there are or what professional development there can be, but there definitely needs to be something, like, even for myself who may not have certain, students that are at risk.
Right.
I feel like strategies would be beneficial for all students.
Yes.
Do you think students that learn different ways?
Absolutely.
That's
right.
my
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for verbalizing that.
Do you think that can be something that is brought up in the weekly PLC meetings? You know, that maybe someone, with you being team lead this year, you can, present that. You know, like, we need this support for our economically disadvantaged students. We need this support for our at-risk students, right? And not only would it benefit them, it would benefit the entire population, right, of students that we service.
Yeah, also on Wednesdays during math planning, I feel like we could have those conversations where, like, even for power time, like, why are we doing the same plans? You know, like, having those
Having
hard
it, like,
conversations.
rotations, right?
Right, like having those conversations about, what is working
right.
and versus what's not, and then like let's
Removing
address.
what's not working. Okay, let's try this. This is not working. Let's take this away. Let's try this. Yeah. Okay.
Because I think right now it's very much like, here's a resource, you're going to do it, you're going to do it, I'm going to do it, and then we won't talk about it again.
So it's almost like a one size fits all, but
that's not
it's-
appropriate.
It's not appropriate.
Right.
Especially not for our economically disadvantaged students or our average students.
Right.
Right. Okay. And it's just not good practice neither, right? Overall, even for
Right.
the students that don't need the intervention, but still, it's just not a good practice.
Right, we still need differentiation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. So I just want to thank you ladies so much for taking your time and reviewing this data so thoroughly with me. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, because I definitely have like a lot on the forefront of my mind now that I like want to talk to my colleagues about.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. I
Sounds
love
good.
that. It's good to sometimes just, dive deep and get into the logistics of it. I am going to send you guys a survey on our observation and the data, and just to kind of get some feedback, and be very honest.